The other thing that I'd like to comment on, I see that, and I understood that we co-chair the committee, Regional Planning Committee. Do we do that? I don't remember us, Toro, doing the co-chairing, but I might have been away. I was away for one.
Yeah.
Fine job too.
I'm encouraging.
Oh, did he? Okay. Well, that's good then.
I'm encouraging him to chair more often.
I thought those on page 12 was very good. Those EBITDA targets and actuals, and I think they really tell a bit of a story. I think that information, certain members of the public will be really interested in that. You know, what are we achieving, what we're not achieving, as with those graphs on page 19. That's pretty revealing stuff. I had a lot of other comments, but nothing really pertinent.
So you got any bits that are plaguing you? Any questions, things you want to challenge, or?
No. There's obviously a lot of stuff in here that I find that's points of discussion, but it's accurate, and that's the main thing in terms of their last 12 months.
Thank you.
Except one little thing which I've raised before, but there's one inaccuracy in here, but it's in confidentiality, so I can't raise it again.
Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm coming back
because of course we have been through this in detail before. So one is a correction on page 10, which will not obviously affect anything. Sorry, I didn't turn my microphone on. Whether we do still have community care, coast care groups that are active. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did have a third point, but I can bring that up during the work plan looking forward.
Thank you. Councillor Barker had his hand up.
Starting with a question time with a question. Is it absolutely necessary on page 10 to start the paragraph off? Clause 33 of Schedule 10 of the Local Government Act 2002 requires Council 2. Once I got halfway along that line, my eyes rolled to the back of my head, and I had to sort of keep myself upright. I mean, is it necessary to have this? I know things are statute reporting, but it seems to me this is a barrier to people reading it.
I would say yes.
I mean, it's just information. I mean, if it causes a offence, we can take it out. I mean, it's interesting, your comment. I'd imagine that's been in for them in years, so let's look at it. Clause 35 of Schedule 10.
My point is that our writing style, in my view, is a barrier to people reading it. Now, if it's in here because it's a requirement of the Act, do we have to say that, or could we, if we do have to say it's a requirement of the Act, could we not say it at the end? This is put in by accordance to such and such. Surely something could be open and inviting in the style we do it. That's my first question. My second question is that just as companies have structures underneath them, and they have all these long, great, complicated things, which no one ever sees, but they trade as, they have a public face. Now, I think, could we not do a bit more thought to the public face and the public engagement this council has with its constituencies, with its people? I agree that all the information required, the 70, 80, 150 pages, needs to be done. I've got no argument about that, and I never challenge that. But I just think we should also be able to think have a two-track process here. One is to meet our statutory and regulatory requirements. The second track would be, just as a company trades, how do we present ourselves in the public face and have a clearer discussion about that? Yes, I accept that we've put out publication reports in my place to attempt to do that, but I don't think we have really got this idea in our head about a public presentation of ourselves and how we engage. So I think it's just orientate ourselves differently. So coming along, I'm sure, for example, McDonald's has a really complicated, long company name and all the rest of it. Do they have that up on the outside of their restaurant? No, they don't. They just have a big yellow M. That's their public face. So it's how they engage with the public. I think we need to think about that.
Today we've got to deal with what's in front of us, but I think some of these conversations could be teased out, if you like, as we go through our LTP process. So be my view. Any other questions before Councillor Scott?
One more, and that's the all-important one. I want to know exactly what the auditors did have to say. I was hoping we would get the report. Is it a totally unqualified report?
It is. So. Sorry, given us audit clearance because they can't actually give us the annual, the audit report until we've done this process and made any adjustments that we were going to make, and then they will sign it off. But it was just the proviso that there were no significant changes in this meeting, and that they receive the signed annual report and letter of representation, which we've got to give them. But those were the two things that they have put there. But I will circulate these for you. And actually, sorry, just for your information, the summary annual report, as last year, wasn't going to go in our place. It was going to go into the paper, the regional papers, on a certain date, which was what we did last year. And Susan might be able to give us a bit more information, but I think that's how that's getting distributed this year.
Okay, sorry, I had a chat with Drew earlier on in the week just about this very topic.
Okay.
And I thought, my understanding was there was going to be something, at least in our place.
Well, there may be as well,
that,
but yeah, maybe.
There will be a summary in our place, but our place is scheduled for later than is required for publishing the summary. So our place is
Right.
Cool. So there'll be two.
So let's just quickly round the table. Councillor Dick, have you got any questions, issues there? Councillor Hewitt, sorry. You're okay? Councillor Graham, Councillor Scott, Mr. Bevan, Councillor Barker, strangely silent. Councillor Mohi, no, sorry, I've jumped the gun there. Mr. Mohi, no, you're all good. Councillor Belford. Someone happy to take us to a recommendation? So you're happy to take us to the recommendations? Thank you. Councillor Scott. We have a mover. Do we have a seconder for that? Thank you. Councillor Pipe. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Scott?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. It's always good to get to this stage where we have been able to go through and look back and see what we have been able to achieve against our projected work programs, level of service, and of course against our budgets. We have had, this is the second go we've had of this, of course, because we did have a very thorough go of it in the draft that we received at the last meeting. So I do think it is alarming that auditors run away from uncovered fraud. It happens in businesses, and it happened, of course, in Dunedin, and clearly one likes to have the confidence that auditors do uncover anything like that. So I think certainly what has arisen out of that is the need for the established need for the Audit Committee. We've got a process in place to do that, and going forward we look forward to the input that will have in future audits.
Thank you, Councillor Pipe.
Yeah, take on board some of the comments around the table about the readability of the report, but it's a delicate balancing act between the statutory requirements and what I guess the general public would require. So I think the balance is not too bad, although I take it on board with Councillor Bevan was saying, that sort of almost executive summary type thing at the front would be most probably really good, because people don't often want to delve down into a lot of the other detail. They want to get a good overview, but we are required to do it in this particular format at this particular stage, and I think thank you to the staff to have her put the work in here.
Further speakers? You wish to speak, Councillor Barker?
Yes, I'd like to make just one or two comments. Firstly is just to restate my view that I've stated before, that I prefer to see a report where the Chair's report is separate from the Chief Executive's. There are two quite separate functions. And I know that by putting both together in the same report, it does send the message, as I'm sure it does, that there's unity, there's no division of views here at all. But I've often looked at these things and thought, where there is the same report, that there isn't clarity about the separation or the division of functionality. So I would expect a Chair's report to be quite strategic overview, and the Chief Executive's report being much more operational. And so I got two sides of the of it, and I could see the entities through the lens of both positions. This is a single report, and it's not in the style that I personally would prefer. But if that's what the people who put it together prefer, so be it. But I just voice my view for the sake of consistency, I guess.
Further speakers? Put the motion, then all those in favour please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Thank you. Right, let's move right along to the recommendations from the Maori Committee on page 19.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. At the last council meeting, Mr Moore gave you a verbal update on this committee meeting as it was held the day before council meeting, so it wasn't on the agenda. This paper here, agenda item 9, on page 19, formalises the recommendations that have come from the Maori Committee. You'll see that there are two, if you like, decision-making items. One is around considering proposals from the Maori Committee as part of the long-term plan development process. Those were actually presented to you for the first time last week at the workshop, and I'm aware that you haven't had a chance to actually, formally consider those, but that has begun that process. The second one was an update on karamu enhancement work around commissioning the recording of the Maori history at Pakawhai Park. And then there was a number of reports note that reports are being received. These were largely presentations from regional council staff on various aspects of work that they're doing around the region. There was also, as you'll note, the Manaake iwi management plan as well, which was presented by Dale Moffat. So those are the formal recommendations now from the Maori Committee meeting of late August.
Thank you. I'll ask Mr Mohi to perhaps help us.
So is this appropriate time, Mr Chairman, to talk about the meeting last week? Just a couple of matters that I want, three matters I want to
bring up some matters. I
Okay.
mean, we need to, as a council, probably delve in a bit deeper than we had the presentation, we digested it.
Yeah.
We now need to come back together as a group, probably at the next workshop, and thrash some of those ideas out. So, but if you've got a couple of points to add, that'll be fine.
Yes, the members, four of us that met with you last week regarding the workshop, we met afterwards, and I'd just like to convey their thanks, and they were flattered by the interest and consideration given by councillors to the presentation. And just three little matters. Councillor Hewitt said, look, I hope this is not going to be the fact that these visitors and fixing up the marae isn't going to be in competition with the motels. I can assure you that 30,000 visitors, they won't be holed up in maraes by any means. I was at the secondary schools national in Gisborne a couple of months ago, and that's a tiny competition in comparison, and I booked 2 months ahead for the motel and only just got in, so the motels will be full up, I can assure you. And the second thing from Councillor Bevan, and this is a huge issue, so I'll just very quickly say that there is sort of a perception amongst the general public that these groups are getting 100 million here and 40 million there and 20 million, and so they'll be using it for the public good. Yes, they will be using it for a lot of the things that we actually brought up at the workshop, but that money, in reality is payment, albeit probably a few cents per dollar, for the lands and the economic ability to go ahead, the lands that were stolen. So that's what that money was given in lieu of. And I know it's a extremely emotional subject, so I just wanted to say that. The third one was in lieu of the request to consider putting adult students through the EIT to try and bridge the gap at a fast pace. And Councillor Scott sort of said, well, haven't this been brought up with HBRC, which is correct, but that was part of a mitigation package which was negotiated with Tamatea, and that we consider that completely separate from something that would be brought to you for the long-term plan. Thank you.
Okay, so any questions based on the recommendations there? Councillor Scott.
Two, Mr. Chairman. One is a matter of process, considering that we now have a recommendation that we consider proposals. Should those proposals actually be identified so that the public are aware of what has come forward? I presume now that they've been presented, or are we waiting till the next Maori Committee meeting until they actually do come forward?
They've yet to be presented in public, and so they weren't actually formally a part of that Maori Committee meeting. So,
so what is the process going?
So the process will be that they will be, and there'll probably be a number of things that need to come back to the that need to come through the public arena, that they should come through to a corporate and strategic committee meeting.
Yep, that's fine. And my second question is, there is a
just before you go there, just a question to Mr. Mohi. That presentation that we saw, have the Maori Committee seen that? The whole committee, or is it just the subcommittee?
Yes, they have.
The whole committee
Yes.
has? Okay, thank you.
The second question is, if we pass this, of course, we do go ahead and approve the commissioning of the recording of Māori history. Can I please know the estimated funding for that and the source of that funding, considering we have already gone into the open spaces for other things, and we've got quite a few things on that. It'd be good to actually know where we are with the budget for that and where it will be funded from.
Sure. We'll have to get that information and bring it back, including the timing of any works for that. But we don't have the costs for that at this stage, unless you do, Mike.
No, but just talking to some of the managers informally afterwards, in terms of some of these, I think there was 12 items that we had. Most of them weren't costed, but they did say, look, the council will be putting aside money for open spaces, and rather than put a figure on yours, a proportion of the amount that's already going there could be specifically for that purpose. Just in regard to that, commissioning the recording of the Maori history of Pakawhai Park, I mean, where do you go for that? What's already existing? And I would go straight to Havelock with Councillor Rex Graham.
Was he got it all? Was he there? No.
He wants to be buried there, apparently.
No, I'm serious. I'm serious in my question, because how
yes.
easy is it to actually get the complete history?
Well, I think the hapu involved there, and Te Puni Kōkiri and Nikki need to be involved, so it's a collective agreed history.
Could I add to that? I take Mike is exactly right. As with any historical account, there are a variety of views, and it's something that you need to tread carefully on. Everybody needs to have a view on it, but there will, at the end of that process, be a distillation of views about what went on there, and you'll have something of value to record on them. And the other point I make is that if you go to quite a number of tourist places around New Zealand, these boards are being put up, selling the history, and people are responding to them really positively and are becoming part of the tourist trail. So it's a tourism attraction. People want to go and see what happened there. I think it's a really positive initiative.
The costing is a big chunk of it will be in the display, I would think, as much as the... Well, the research should probably not that expensive, but the display will be reasonably expensive. Yeah, okay. Okay. Okay, any other questions? Can we get to the recommendations on this paper? No further questions? Someone happy to move that we... thank you, Councillor Graham. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Barker. Do you wish to speak? Councillor Barker, you wish to speak further? Other speakers? Thank you. I'll put that motion then. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Right. Corporate and Strategic Committee on page 21. There is a range of recommendations there. Would the Chairman like to lead us off on this discussion, please?
Thank you. We had a really good meeting, I thought, corporate and strategic meeting a couple of weeks ago.